Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
These shows are brought to you by the Compassionate Friends and the Open to Hope Foundation. We bring these shows to you because we want you to find hope after loss, and we want for you to hear a voice of grief and recovery. But today it's really special because we've got some people here who have special resources that we want you to share with everyone you know to help you through the grieving process.
Absolutely, Mama. We are going to talk today, like you said, about resources for grieving families. We have two guests on, and then we have a wonderful singer-songwriter that is going to close our show. So our guests we know them. They've been on the show before. Well, one's been on the show before, and one I've known for years, and I've been trying to get her on the show. Let me start off with Marie Levine. Marie and I have known each other, 15 years. We serve on the board of Compassionate Friends together. Right. And Marie is the former she's the former president, the chapter leader for her, how am I going to say this? Okay, the Compassionate...
The Manhattan chapter of the Compassionate Friends. And I started a chapter on the eastern end of Long Island called the Twin Forks chapter.
And you're starting another one, right?
Well, three of the gals who were in my Long Island chapter just broke off and started another chapter on Long Island. And this spring we're starting a sub-chapter for parents who've lost infants and born stills.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
awesome.
That's fabulous.
Awesome.
She also received a much-deserved award as a chapter leadership award from the National Office of the Compassionate Friends, and I love serving with her. And she's written two fabulous books, First You Die and The Tincture of Time, which I highly recommend. And most of all, she is the mother of Peter, her only child, and her son, who died at the age of 22. Very good-looking kid, I gotta say. Just another plug. Nancy Cincotta, I've also known for a very long time. She does a lot of work in New York City and around the country for grief and loss. She just gave an all-day symposium for CEUs, for credits, up at Columbia University School of Social Work, where I've been teaching for the last 13 years. And she runs Camp Sunshine, and that is a camp for children. So she's going to talk to us a lot about her work, and like I said, she's an expert in the field of grief and loss. Love having her on again. And then we're going to close this show with Anna Huckabee Tull. And Anna has written a fabulous book called Living Deeper, Yes, and is a coach. And Anna, can you just let us know what you're going to close with, what song?
Yes, it's called The Rest, I'm sorry, it's not The Rest of the Story, that's a different one. This is a song called The Days of Your Opening.
Okay.
And I'm happy to tell you about it now or later or whatever would be fitting.
Why don't you tell us now so we make sure that we...
So this is, people commission me to write songs for all kinds of things, and this is a woman who learned that she had cancer and did not have long to live, and thought about the question of, if I know that the end is coming soon, what's my message to the world? So the song that I'll be sharing is a very uplifting song about a message about what it means to start looking around and noticing the beauty everywhere around you, and looking at the world and inviting all of us to look at the world the way those who are coming close to the end can sometimes start to see the world. So it's inspiring. I played it at her funeral, and I'd never been to a memorial service that had everybody up and dancing in the aisles on their way out the door at the end of it.
So it was a celebration of her life.
It was an absolute celebration song. So seemed like a fitting way to close out today's show.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. Well, Marie, first of all, I want to talk to you about the Compassionate Friends, because surprisingly enough, the Compassionate Friends is probably the largest grief recovery site in the world, or group.
It's pretty big.
Internationally.
Yeah.
But people don't know about it.
It's a strange situation for us to have grown as big as we have become. I had never heard of the Compassionate Friends, certainly, 20 years ago when Peter died, but the few books that there were that I searched and found at the bookstore all seemed to recommend this group, the Compassionate Friends, and I thought it was a very unwieldy name.
I think they think it is too. Pretty hard to change.
But I called, and it turned out I had just missed a meeting in Manhattan. There was a chapter in Manhattan. So I waited the 30 days, and I went to a meeting, and it wasn't for me. I thought, this is not my thing, even though I was despairing beyond all. And through a woman that I met a couple of months later, I met her on the phone, and she begged me to meet her in person at a Compassionate Friends meeting. I begged off. She convinced me. So I went to a second meeting several months later, and lo and behold, in walks the woman who was the reason that I never went back. You know, and she and I became fast friends. We are fast friends to this day. She had lost her son 3 weeks after Peter died. She was a psychotherapist. We've traveled this path for the rest of our lives. And that's always been a complaint. Why don't people know more about us? Well, I think the reason has always been, or up to now, we've thought of the organization because it's about death. That's the way it's been perceived, is that it's been about death. People have perceived us sitting in a room, you know, wrapped in sackcloth and ashes and crying and grieving. And in fact, it's about life. And that's what happened to me when I walked in that second time and realized that all of these people were suffering exactly the same experience and pain and despair as I was experiencing. I didn't have to try to explain it because the loss of a child does stand alone. It just stands alone in the grief experience, which is horrible to begin with. But as time has gone on, more and more people have, the people who have discovered the Compassionate Friends have come to realize, they talk about it, there's more attention being paid because we're suffering now from, I call it a tsunami of grief. I mean, the world is just overwhelmed with children dying. I mean, children are dying. It used to be, you know, illness, and then it became car accidents, and then it became drugs, and now it's become, you know, opioids and guns and terror. It's just the way our world goes. So, and we do have people who have come to the group through their own despair and life experience, and they are people who want the world to know that they found a safe place. So there are more of us talking about it, and I think in the future, more people will recognize that there is a place to
And
go.
with the internet, there's a lot of hope.
Well, the internet
in this,
too,
bringing it up. Well, Nancy, let's talk. I know Heidi said you just did a big grief conference in Manhattan.
So I think that was about 2 weeks ago at Columbia. It was an interesting and long day because we had people from looking at kind of children with, who had been affected by life-threatening illnesses, either as the child in a family of a parent who was sick or where in fact the child was sick. But it's interesting for me as I think about it because this week for me has been an interesting week because annually I do a memorial service at a hospital that I've worked at. And I've been running a continuous monthly bereavement group that is just about coming to a close for 35 years.
Wow.
So it's just
That's
interesting that like it feels like every day this week there is something more to compile this feeling of having been connected to bereavement work for a long time. And I guess one of the things I was thinking about at the start of that is that in my very first sibling bereavement group, which really had to be 35 years ago, I remember this teenage sibling talking very clearly. It was around Christmas. Her parents didn't want to put up a Christmas tree. And her feeling was that she didn't die. And how could she explain that to her parents so that they could both understand it and know that it didn't mean that she didn't miss her brother. It just meant that she really was going to continue her life and she wanted them to continue with her. So all of those things led me to Camp Sunshine, which is a retreat for families of kids with life-threatening illnesses. So the entire family comes, and we will run 23 sessions in 2018.
Wow.
And they are for families of kids with all different kinds of cancer, brain tumors, kids who've had solid organ transplants, kids with lupus and sickle cell disease. And we started doing bereavement programming in 2000 and one. And it was interesting. Our first bereavement program was supposed to be the weekend of September 14th that year. And when 9/11 happened, that program didn't run until 2002, but we also ran 5 programs for families in which a parent died on 9/11. But our tradition, we run 2 bereavement programs a year, one for Memorial Day weekend and one for Veterans Day weekend. And we just ran a program with 38 bereaved families in attendance as participants, and then 8 bereaved families as volunteers who are helping. And it's an interesting opportunity to have families bring clothing of their children to make quilts out of. And it is a really interesting program that parallels both like the psychosocial issues and the actual, we started the actual experience of what you do with your child's belongings after your child dies. And I had for many years heard bereaved parents talk about what do you do with the clothing, and what do you do with your child's room? How do you keep your child present, yet how do you also deal with the day-to-day issues of life after your child dies? So I remember when we started, I think people thought I was a little bit crazy because it was like, you want to do what? In the very first weekend, we had 23 families, and we went into it thinking we're going to make 23 full-size quilts in 4 days. And we got most of them done, and some people took some home to help finish. And then we've learned a lot in the quilting process. But the very interesting things are, like, if you really think about like the technical part of making a quilt and like kind of what that is for parents, right? Just even kind of the willingness to go through the clothing, then potentially even like the cutting up of the clothing, and then the giving the clothing a new life so that it can maybe not be sitting in a drawer, but can be hanging, or can be on a bed, or can be something that people cuddle with. And it has, so while the program is going on, during the, I run support groups throughout the course of the week. So during the support groups, there's no quilting happening. And during the quilting time, there's no support groups happening, but they really do, like, each part brings up other issues that complement each other. And by the end of the week, there's always this amazing product. And everybody, comes, you don't have to be a sewer. We have a whole cohort of quilters who have grown with us, and we have people who sew, people who iron, people who quilt. And, for families who have, some families, somehow there's advice that comes to them of, get rid of your kids' clothing. And some people do that, and they come to us and they're worried because they don't have anything left, and we will then scan photos or artwork of their child's onto fabric and be able to do that. And then we have fabric that people can choose that remind them of things that their kids like. And we do very creative things. I mean, sometimes, it's quilting, but it could be a pillow. It could be something that has like a whole dress on it, or a whole, like, it's not, nothing is the same, and every child's loss is different. And so
the problem is not every family member is in agreement.
Correct. Right. And not every child, right, agrees with parents about what they should do on the quilt. And so there's a whole interesting process of family dynamics that happens for it. And it is an interesting program for me for many, many reasons. But for some families, I knew the family decades ago when their child was alive. And throughout the course of the illness and now. And I was saying before that there are some situations in which if the child was very young, I know more of the things that happened around the death of their sibling than they know or remember from their experience.
Wow.
So it's very interesting to be in a place where you can kind of talk about things that happen in a way that brings both, an outsider's perspective into the experience. It seems it's really a very, very helpful model for kids. And
fantastic songwriting material, doesn't it, for a family, getting a family together.
So it sounds like a great program that we could adopt as a workshop at our annual conference. We have a national conference every year in July in a rotating city. And there are over 100 workshops, and one of the workshops I remember is, what do I do with my child's things? That is, it's a conversation. There's another, the crafty corner one, where they actually do projects with in remembrance of the children. But what you're doing sounds like something that we might include as the young sibling program that we're trying to develop.
Yeah.
Because we have a sibling program. And the challenge with the sibling program is that there are siblings who are like
Of all
under
ages,
12.
correct.
And then we have young adult siblings, and, you know, creating programs
Right.
that work for those two different groups.
Yeah.
So Nancy, tell us what you got in your hand. It's pretty,
I know.
pretty gnarly.
That's what I was wondering.
So
That's what I was
here,
wondering.
I'm
What
gonna
is
pass
Nancy
it around.
carrying?
You wanna-
Yeah.
So I sometimes on the subways of New York look a little bit odd because I'll be doing a presentation. So I use the stick. So the stick is made by either by parents in the group or by kids. I've done it in the teen group with the teens. And then people pass the stick around. And the theory behind this is that glitter, people either love or hate glitter, but glitter, once you touch it, stays with you. You know, it stays with you for a long time.
I'm noticing that.
And
Notice I'm not touching it.
and your children stay with you for a long time. So the whole point is just that your children never leave you, and the glitter is just symbolic about that. And when we started doing it, the very first time we did it, I heard people in the bathroom talking about, I don't want to wash my hands because of the glitter. It's like, don't worry, we'll have the glitter stick around. You're going to wash your hands. But it has just become just a nice opportunity for people to just pass it around, to just touch the glitter.
Get a little glittery.
And really, like, sometimes people rub it on the hair and they do different things with it, but it's just, I think, kind of a nice symbol of...
And people can make this. So you just
Oh,
took
absolutely. It's just
tree
Elmer's
I mean, how did you get
Elmer's
this?
glue
It's
and
a tree,
glitter.
Elmer's glue
a
and
tree out of
and
Central
glitter.
Park and Elmer's glue and glitter. I
I'm
love
going
this.
to do this for my group and pass it around at a meeting.
I like this,
I
Marie.
love that
Yeah,
idea.
Yeah.
So it's a very nice
I'm
thing.
sure
Just, it's
Nancy-
a
You
very
may have it
simple.
back now.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
sure
I have to
Nancy-
have you guys.
All right,
I
I'm
know
sure
everybody
has
has
to
to have
get
some
some
glitter.
glitter.
I love it.
It's on your
I'm
right.
a big,
You're right.
I'm a big glitter
Well, look
gal.
at my fingernails. You
Yes.
know I'm a
Oh,
big
you match.
glitter person.
Yes.
I
It's
could buy
true.
myself a
I love
Sure,
glitter.
glitter-
I'm all
glitter
about
like
the
that.
glitter.
And I think it brings some
It's a
of the
great
joy
idea.
of childhood
Yeah,
and
it's
some
cool.
of the
glitter
memories.
always makes you smile, and I love that it's got some of those little
I
tree
love
things.
that.
Okay, so Nancy, one thing I'm worried about when I'm here, you're talking about this. Let's see, the camp is for people who have cancer.
It's for families in which a child has
Okay.
cancer or another life-threatening
This
illness.
might, okay, so what if my child's died? I just saw those fabulous pictures about those kids having so much fun there. It starts in when?
So the bereavement programs are, one is in May and one is in November, and you have to have had a child who died of one of the illnesses that we
Okay.
serve. And it actually is, I mean, I think that, you know, I've listened to your show many times, and just as you hear people talk about kind of what the joys are like, that no one would say that they wanted to have their children die, but some
Right.
of the relationships that the families make with each other and some of the kids with each other, they're very grateful to have the opportunity and that this experience
Right.
is there for them. Because if you think about it, right, for kids growing up, very rarely, like in your class at school, do you have another person who has lost a sibling.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
here in our program, everybody in your group, the kids are broken up into, you know, their different age groups, but everybody in the group with them is somebody who has lost a
I
sibling.
assume if
That's
you want to
powerful.
know about it, you got to get online and
If you go to
and you're-
www.campsunshine.org, you'll see that
you
we're...
can go online and see if you can get into this program. How much
Yes.
is it?
Camp Sunshine is free to for every family
my
who
gosh.
applies. It is all funded by generous donors of all kinds who usually for us we're pretty fortunate that once somebody starts to be a donor with us, they're really compelled by the program and they continue with us. We hope to serve 800 families in all of our programs.
Awesome.
Fabulous.
Fantastic. Well,
Really
what I'm thinking
fabulous.
about Compassionate Friends, Marie, is as a professional therapist, I can tell you one of the problems, and I don't mind you commenting on this, Nancy. Professional therapists have a bias about doing groups without a professional there. Many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe Nancy does, and I know some people don't, but many of them do, and I always try to say to them, it's only once a month. We don't care if you go to your therapist.
Well, in fact,
4 days a
I
week?
think it's a good marriage. I mean, you can go to
Yeah.
a therapist and go to a meeting, and there is research out there to support the efficacy of the power of peer-to-peer support groups.
Absolutely, and
So-
and many therapists. I mean, I meet. One of the things that we feel the best about, and we say it at the opening, is none of us are professional. We're all bereaved parents.
Right.
So we don't give any advice.
But we have to not be too proud of that either.
Well, but I think it's important. That's what
I'm a
resonated
therapist,
with
but,
me.
yeah.
But
I'm a
therapists
ther-
recommend,
Yes.
you know, and
But
people tell us
therapists-
about their we don't say don't go to a therapist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I hope we don't.
But we don't.
You know, but there's some
Yeah.
people in the world that say that. But one of the things I want to say about this is that, you know, try it. You know, bereaved parents are difficult. Nancy's worked with bereaved parents.
Mom, are you saying you were difficult?
I was.
She
I
was
always
difficult,
say
by the way.
Bereaved parents are, we're nuts.
Well, it's a lot. Right.
We're
Well, you
nuts
do,
for a
you
year
lose
or
your
two.
mind.
Yeah, you lose
You
your
do
mind.
lose your mind.
Well, I think that's the power of Compassionate Friends. You can go and say, look, I feel like I'm not myself, I'm going crazy, and other parents can say, look,
We
I've been
validate-
there.
we
I've
validate
been
each
there.
other's
I
feelings.
understand what
That's
that
right.
feels like.
That's right.
And that kind of calms the system down to hear that you're not alone.
I hope people that are watching this, I want to say that you might not like the group in your neighborhood, or you might feel like you want to start your own group, which you can, but the national conferences are amazing
Yeah.
because they're very professional. You can pick and choose what you want. And I would say if any therapists are watching this who are worried about Compassionate Friends, you should go to a national conference and just sit quietly and see what it's like for 1,500 people, as the woman who has my chapter says, to spend the weekend with her daughter.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
That's really, it's the truth. I was going to wear my Peter Pin
I love that.
today, and I opted to not do that. I thought it might not work today, but at a conference where you have all these families, mothers, fathers, siblings, you know, walking around, and we're all wearing our kids' image.
Yeah.
And we are so
Right.
comfortable
Right.
looking at and oh, he's so gorgeous, she's so beautiful. We talk about our children as if they just couldn't make
That's
it
what's
that
occurring
weekend.
to me as you're describing it is that if it's an entire room or gigantic room full of people
Right.
with whom it is safe to almost sort
That's
of
right.
bring your child back to the forefront. It's not out in the world where you have to carefully explain and then it's tricky
Yeah,
and what if
right,
it's
right,
uncomfortable.
right.
It occurs to me that in that kind of environment, everybody, it just doubles the love in the room
We're
because there's all
laughing, we're
this other
talking,
energy.
we're
It's all
talking
about
about
love.
our kids. We have moments and places where one can go and just meditate
And there are people
on
who
it.
get mad and, you know, they have to go to, so we have some people there to catch them and talk to them. But Nancy, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want to thank you as always, Marie. And thank you, and I'm looking forward to your song.
Yeah.
Can I just add a
Yes,
comment about
go for it.
Compassionate Friends from a professional point of view? That, in fact, I do think that the greatest support for bereaved families is finding the strength within other bereaved families to help enable them. So whether the group is happening through Compassionate Friends or it's happening where other programs where people are matched up to meet people, that in the world, in order to survive, I think, after your
Yeah.
child has died, you
Yeah.
really need to be connected to
Yeah.
other families and communities of people who have lost a child, because basically you are, if you think about it, right, bereaved parents are normal people in an abnormal situation, and I think
Exactly.
it is within all of our power to help normalize the situation.
And I
so
think
that,
you do that at Camp Sunshine
Yeah.
for the kids.
Yeah.
Okay,
We do it for the
thank
whole
you. Thank you all for being on the show. Can you close the show for us, Heidi?
Sure, I'd love to. I'd love to close the show. So I want to thank our guests today and just say, please visit all these resources out there, the Compassionate Friends, Camp Sunshine. Go on to Anna's site for her music. And if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless. Thank you.
These are the days of your opening. These are the days of your opening. Farther and wilder and deeper and wider and over and over and over and over. 'Cause these are the days of your opening. These are the days of your opening. Farther and wilder and deeper and wider, past all of the aching parts deep down inside you, and widen who you are to encompass all the pain. Widen who you are to hold that little one again. Widen past the borders to the brilliance of the sky. Widen to the window and then stand up and fly. These are the days of your opening. These are the days of your opening. Burn it and clean it and break it and feel it and watch yourself falling and feeling and meaning it. Widen who you are to see the love that surrounds you. Widen who you are until the love in you astounds you. Open to the sweetness of the feeling all around you. Drop into the depth of it, wide open.